What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Kingdom Crew podcast. I am your host, Josh Fann, today, and I am joined by, as always, the Michael D'Arcy of KC Sports Report and Bleacher Report. And we're back for another episode to talk about the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl. We were supposed to do a show for you guys last week, but the timing didn't work out. And I've been working evenings for my actual job outside of YouTube lately. So we finally were able to get together this weekend. We're going to go over pretty much everything. Since we didn't talk about the Ravens game, we're going to do some Ravens stuff. Then we'll talk about AFC Championship aftermath, some news from over the week, and initial thoughts on this Super Bowl matchup with the San Francisco 49ers. But Michael, how have you been, man? How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Josh. As we've talked about off air, I got the opportunity to go to Super Bowl week Radio Row the week before the Super Bowl. So I'll be there for 810 Sports Radio. Just going to be down there in Vegas trying to get some content done and shoot photos and videos. I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, like I said to you off air, I mean, that's just an amazing opportunity. That's an opportunity you don't typically get, and the Chiefs have to be in the Super Bowl pretty much for you to have a chance to go. And you're going to be able to talk to and meet so many different celebrities, football legends. And yeah, that's going to be a hell of a time. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it should be a great time. Like I've been getting lenses, and I'm going to go get SD cards and camera batteries, and still got a pack for Vegas, but it'll be a lot of fun. And I'm coming home for the game, but we'll have the opportunity to go do stuff all week long, get player access, and hopefully that content will be on the YouTube channel. I'm not really sure. I actually saw in some of the emails from NFL Communications that like on opening night specifically, if we posted anything before like 10 p.m. Central, we'd get in trouble. So there might be some hoops I have to jump through to get it on YouTube, but we'll see if I can, and definitely get something on like social media.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm looking forward to it. And honestly, I'm glad that you're going to be able to go home for the actual game, because I'll tell you what, if I had to like be at the Super Bowl, I don't know if I really like that. I feel like I'm more comfortable just watching it in a room by myself or something like that, because I'm just too stressed out. Like if it was two teams I don't care about, then sure, I'd go to the Super Bowl. That sounds like fun. But when it's my team, I don't know, man. I just need my space.
That and also just the financial investment it would be to go to the football game. I'm not trying to drop $8,000 on a ticket and potentially see my team lose. That might be the worst weekend of my life. So I decided to, go on that Monday, actually this Monday, and come back Friday and get away from Vegas once the Super Bowl starts.
See, that is the one thing that the NFL does worse than any other sports league. It is damn near impossible for regular fans to go to championship games because of how outrageous the prices are. It's basically catered to celebrities and rich people. And that just sucks, man, because you got so many football fans out there. Stadiums hold like 70, 80,000 people, and tickets are like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. That's just ridiculous, man. Like you can go to an NBA Finals game for a fraction of that. And that's just one thing that the NFL is just so far behind on.
It's all the big business owners and the people that have the advertising stuff. And the common fan can't go to the Super Bowl anymore, and that sucks. But they have done a pretty good job of making the week before the Super Bowl more of an event, more of a party. I know that while Radio Row is going on, there's going to be like the NFL fan experience and the Super Bowl experience. And it's actually at the Mandalay Bay Convention Center. It's all in one giant spot. It's just separated by room. So, I mean, it's going to be a great event for fans who probably can't get into the game, but still want to take part in that Super Bowl atmosphere.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I just hate that most of the people that are going to be at the game aren't diehard Chiefs or 49ers fans, and you want people in those stands that are cheering for a team playing in the game, not just a bunch of rich people. I mean, I'm sure there will still be a fair amount of Chiefs and Niners fans there, but that's just how I feel. I think there will be a lot of Chiefs fans there, though, because I mean, Chiefs fans have traveled very well to Vegas in the past. I know the Super Bowl is a little bit different, but I do expect there to be a pretty large Chiefs presence there. I don't know what you think.
there's always a very large presence in Chiefs games on the road, and the playoffs has been no different. There was even a decent amount of people in Baltimore that I wasn't expecting to see. So in a Super Bowl where it's in Vegas, and I mean, we all know the story about how there's a Chiefs flag planted somewhere in the bowels of Allegiant Stadium. So I love that, and I do think the Chiefs Kingdom travels well. So I don't know what the percentage of, Niners to Chiefs fans is going to be like, because the 49ers are closer to Vegas, I think, and they also, California money, but
and a lot of
Chiefs guys.
That western part of the country, definitely it feels like cheers for those California teams a lot. So
yeah, but at the end of the day, like the Chiefs, whether they're they have the home fans or even the away fans, like it's not going to matter. It's really not. Yeah. I mean, the Chiefs have shown that they can win on the road, something that everybody thought they couldn't do. They went to Buffalo and Baltimore and they knocked them off.
Yeah, that storyline's over. But that's a perfect segue, Michael. We didn't get to talk about the Ravens game. What was your reaction to how that game went? I mean, how were you feeling before and after? Because I was pretty confident going into it, but man, that game had me feeling nervous towards the end there. But the Chiefs pull it out. They're heading to another Super Bowl. And I got to say, too, this has been probably the sweetest AFC Championship game win since Patrick Mahomes has been the starter, because it just felt like the odds were stacked against you. You were on the road. This Ravens team was very good. They were top 5 in both offense and defense. And it just feels like if we do go on to win the Super Bowl again this year, the NFL let us get one that we shouldn't have.
Everybody said that what Tom Brady did was impossible to replicate. And everybody got frustrated with how he won football games. It just seemed like, man, he always had the better defense. And he just made one play that the other team didn't make, and they won the football game. And right now, Patrick Mahomes is in his Tom Brady arc, because the Kansas City Chiefs offensively against the Baltimore Ravens, they didn't look great. They dropped 17 points. They looked good in the first half. They were efficient. But in the second half, they leaned on that defense, the defense that has been the best all year, in my opinion. I know the Baltimore Ravens had the number 1 defense and a bunch of statistical metrics, but when you needed your defense to make a play, the Chiefs defense was that defense that stepped up. And Patrick Mahomes understands the offense that he has, and they have really done a good job this year of leaning on the defense. I mean, in years prior, the defense has had to lean on the offense. This year, that's not the case. I mean, the Chiefs offense is not going to go out there and win a dogfight like 40-35. It's just not going to happen. You're going to need to have your defense step up. And to his credit, he's done that. And to the defense's credit, I mean, Josh, that defensive performance against the Baltimore Ravens is one of the best defensive performances I've ever seen. This was one of the best offenses in the league with the soon-to-be MVP winner, and you held him to 7 points, 1 touchdown on a blown coverage downfield by your linebacker, Nick Bolton. Outside of that, you made big plays when you needed to.
Well, so something I was going to point out too, that 1 touchdown that they had, it's not even necessarily that the coverage by Bolton was bad. That play was never meant to happen because it was designed for Leo Chanel to hit home on the blitz. And he did. He had Lamar wrapped up. He just couldn't bring him down. That was the only reason that play happened.
Yeah. But outside of that, the Chiefs had 3 plays in this game that were the difference makers. The Charles Omenihu strip sack that was fallen on by George Karlaftis, the L'Jarius Sneed fumble at the goal line on Zay Flowers, and then the Deion Bush interception in triple coverage in the 4th quarter. Those plays iced this game for the Chiefs. And then the best part of all, Josh, the best part of all is on 3rd and 9 with 2:19 to go in the game. The Ravens had no timeouts left. They were going to use the 2-minute warning, try to get that football back. Patrick Mahomes drops back, finds Marquez Valdez-Scantling 32 yards downfield. He's falling down, catches the football, and ices the game for the Kansas City Chiefs. And we're going back to the Super Bowl, baby.
I remember seeing it in real time. And because he was falling away from the angle or the camera angle that would have shown him catching the ball, I was like, did he catch it? And then I saw him getting up and celebrating. I'm like, oh, he caught it. We're going to the Super Bowl. But I did hold my breath there for a second because I wasn't 100% sure MVS actually caught it falling down and all. But what a redemption for Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who had just taken a beating all regular season from the fans and the media. And I mean, we were critical of him as well. I've always kind of defended him though, because I felt like he was thrown into a role that didn't fit him this year and it made him less productive. But he really has stepped up in the playoffs. He'll probably end up getting cut this offseason, but
He probably should. Listen,
but his contributions.
Yeah.
No, go. You can go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, MVS, thanks for performing in the postseason, but your regular season is not enough to keep you. I think he has to get cut after this season, but hey, go out with another Super Bowl ring.
Right. Yeah, like you're still here. You still have a chance at another championship. He's turned it on in the postseason. He's made the big plays. And that is one thing you can say about MVS, despite all of the criticisms, is that the big ones in the playoffs, he typically comes down with. I mean, he's been productive in the playoffs. There's no denying that. He was the hero of the AFC Championship game last year. And this year he had the catch to send the Chiefs to the Super Bowl. So credit to MVS, man. But yeah, I think the play that won this game essentially was the L'Jarius Sneed forcing the ball out on Zay Flowers, because if the Ravens scored there, it's only a 3-point game, if I remember correctly. And then there was definitely enough time for the Ravens to at least tie. And they did hit a field goal later in the game. Now, of course, as I said on one of my past videos, if the Ravens do score there, then the trajectory of the game maybe looks a little bit different. So you can't just assume that they tied the game, but it definitely would have been a lot closer. You would have been a lot more nervous as a Chiefs fan if they scored that touchdown, but the defense came up clutch. One concern I do have coming out of this AFC Championship, though, is that the offense kind of looked like the regular season offense, at least in the second half. They were really good in the first half, but then the Ravens really started to break down the protection that the Chiefs offensive line had set up, and the offense wasn't able to move the ball. And you're just like, man, just a field goal or a touchdown ends this thing. Can we get that touchdown or field goal? And no, they couldn't. And luckily their defense held on. The offense is going to have to be better in the Super Bowl if they want to beat the San Francisco 49ers, especially because of the playmakers that the 49ers have on their offense. Not that the Chiefs don't have a great defense, but I just don't love this style of football where we cling on to a 10-point first half lead, for dear life. It's just something that came back to bite this team all regular season. Now, to the Ravens' credit, they have one of the best, if not the best defense the Chiefs will see all year. And that has something to do with it. I should also throw in that if not for a very ticky-tack holding call, the Chiefs would have scored 21 in the first half. And then that game wouldn't even have been a question. But that's not the hand that the Chiefs were dealt. They needed that one last score in the second half to really ice the game. They couldn't get it. And luckily the defense picked up their slack, but it's something that I'm going to be watching as we head into the Super Bowl. That is one negative takeaway that I have from the game.
Yeah, it's easy for us to sit up here and say the Chiefs are so great. Like, they're going back to the Super Bowl in a year that they shouldn't be going back, quite frankly. But them only scoring 17 points in one half of football, is it going to be good enough to beat the 49ers? I mean, if you would have asked me, Michael, is 17 points enough to beat the Baltimore Ravens? I would have said absolutely not. So who am I to say that 17 points is not enough to beat the 49ers? But at the same time, you'd like to get in the mid-20s and really lean on that defense, give them a little bit more room for cushion, because while the Baltimore Ravens offense may have statistically been better than the Niners, I like the playmakers of Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle a lot more than I like Zay Flowers and Odell Beckham Jr. So that is going to be a problem for this defense, and it's not going to be easier from a defensive perspective. But, I think that the Chiefs are going to do this for a long time, and we need to kind of just, lock in for it. They're going to win a lot of games with Patrick Mahomes that are really ugly one-score football games where the last person, to touch the ball is either going to win it or lose it. And good for us, the defense stepped up, but it was close throughout the entire game. We're not going to blow anybody out. And so this Super Bowl that's coming up, similar to the AFC Championship game, it's going to be an ugly game that'll probably be between 7 points and 3 points. I mean, it's going to be really close. But beating Baltimore on the road, given the fact that their defense is so good, it makes me feel better going into this Niners Super Bowl, especially because the Niners kind of got, I don't want to say gift wrapped a Super Bowl, but the Lions kind of imploded. And so the Chiefs defense is not going to implode like the Detroit Lions defense did. And can Brock Purdy respond? I mean, you kind of saw that in the big moments, Lamar Jackson folded in that AFC Championship game. And that's what I was saying going into it, that, hey, listen, I know they beat the Houston Texans, but going into this AFC Championship game, Lamar Jackson was 2-3 in the playoffs. Like, he has not won these games. The Chiefs have won these games, and they've won Super Bowls. So at the same time, like, I understand that the team might be better, but as we were saying before the game even started, you know, the Baltimore Ravens don't have Patrick Mahomes. The 49ers do not have 15 on their team, and he's the ultimate equalizer and just the guy that changes everything.
Yeah, and if you're a Ravens fan, you have to be feeling pretty sick to your stomach because this was your year. The Chiefs were as vulnerable as ever. You had a really good offense, a really good defense. You got the Chiefs at your house on the road. Because the thing about this game, too, is that Ravens fans are really annoying to me. Like, they're one of the most annoying fan bases. They're still crying about the refs. That's enough. I'm going to get off on a whole nother tangent here, but I still see Ravens fans crying on Twitter about the refs in this game when the refs literally took 9 points off the board from the Chiefs in this game. They missed a tripping on Chris Jones that occurred in the end zone and would have given the Chiefs another couple points right there. They took Rashee Rice's touchdown off the board. That happened on the ticky-tack Trey Smith call. Everyone talks about how the Chiefs get all the calls, and there were definitely some missed calls on this game, but there were missed calls on both sides. And then everyone wants to complain about the roughing the passers, calling Mahomes. They were legit roughing the passers. You can't hit the dude in the helmet. It's going to get called every single time. I cannot stand these Ravens fans that are whining on Twitter, but we know it's just because they're coping with the fact that this was their year and they failed. And now, this is the luxury that we have recording this after the fact, on a Saturday after the AFC Championship, is there's been more development after the game. The Ravens coaching staff has been absolutely picked apart by other teams looking to hire coordinators or give those guys promotions. I mean, the Ravens had a really good staff in place. They have, some big free agents coming up and stuff. And man, this was their year. Same thing for Buffalo. You can say the exact same thing for Buffalo. This was their year, and they just couldn't do it. They couldn't beat Patrick Mahomes at his worst. And I shouldn't say Mahomes at his worst, the Chiefs at their worst, but you get my point. This was their year, man, and they just blew it. I mean, they had the Chiefs. They had them.
Yeah, and do you think that Brett Veach, given the fact that he just watched 17 games in the regular season where they went 11-6 with a wide receiver core that couldn't catch the football, do you think he's going to sit back all offseason long and not address that need? And if the Chiefs could win the Super Bowl in the same year that they had these issues, these struggles, oh man, it's going to be bad for the rest of the league. Because, I mean, listen, the Chiefs have been that team that is the thorn in everybody's side. And I don't, drawing comparisons to Brady is one thing. Patrick Mahomes' talent, just talent on the football field, is something that we've never seen. It's not what Tom Brady could do. And so that sheer talent should terrify everybody else, because you give him a couple good receivers, draft one, maybe re-sign L'Jarius Sneed, Chris Jones. Who's beating this team? Who is beating them? Joe Burrow? Maybe. I mean, outside of Joe Burrow, it's not Lamar Jackson.
I also want to say,
go ahead.
No, I mean, the Chiefs, they'd be Super Bowl favorites again. They're going to be Super Bowl favorites as soon as the season concludes. Even if they lose this Super Bowl, I'm telling you, the opening lines for the Chiefs next year to win the Super Bowl, well, they're going to be the favorites because they have Patrick Mahomes, and everyone knows that the Chiefs are going to come back even better next year. I was going to say, though, looking at it in a glass half full perspective, when talking about the Chiefs offense in that game, because I said that was one of my negatives, all they need to do, like we said, the magic number from the regular season was like 24 or 25 points, mid-20s. I feel very confident in saying that if the Chiefs just break that threshold of 24, 25 points, they will win the Super Bowl. Because if you go back at the regular season, look at their schedule and just have them at 25 points per game, they would have went undefeated, Michael. This team would have been undefeated had they simply scored 25 points in every single game. And these numbers from the Chiefs defense are historical. I mean, they've only allowed like 3 points in the fourth quarter of the playoffs this year. Just crazy numbers from Spags' defensive unit this postseason. He is on an absolute heater. And not to spoil our preview for the Super Bowl, but the Chiefs have not allowed a 300-yard passer this year. And I said it for Lamar Jackson. I'm going to say it for Brock Purdy, but if the Chiefs haven't allowed a 300-yard passer this year, I don't think Brock Purdy's going to be the first.
Absolutely not. The only chance, and we're not going to get too much into the Super Bowl preview stuff, but like that offense is going to get run through Christian McCaffrey. And if it doesn't go through Christian McCaffrey, the 49ers might lose in the first half. Like they have no chance to win this football game if you place it in the hands of Brock Purdy and say, hey, kid, go beat Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes has struggled himself in Super Bowls. And if Patrick Mahomes has struggled, Brock Purdy's going to get eaten alive. And so at a certain point, man, we talk about it a lot. Experience in these games matters. And I think the intimidation factor of the Kansas City Chiefs, the Chiefs have been in this game 4 times in the last 5 seasons. Like that is an intimidating statistic. And the 49ers have been on the opposite end of the Chiefs winning a Super Bowl. And so what do you think that makes, them feel? Like, obviously they want revenge, but they know what Patrick Mahomes is like and they can't stop it. And so we'll see if the same thing happens. But I just think that they are limited because Brock Purdy's limited on offense, but they're going to try to go through Christian McCaffrey. And if it doesn't happen through him, it's not going to happen.
Well, the thing that I've come to learn, and I know this too because I watched the Chiefs on the opposite end of this for years and years before Patrick Mahomes came along, the team with the better quarterback typically wins these games.
Yeah.
There's been a few times where the worst quarterback hasn't won, like Nick Foles and the Eagles in 2017. But for the most part, the better quarterback wins these games, and Mahomes is the better quarterback than Brock Purdy. And this isn't to disrespect Brock Purdy. He's done a really good job for the 49ers. He's an upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo, especially because he can improvise more a little bit than Garoppolo, and he's more mobile. He can run outside the pocket. But the arm talent isn't anything insane, and he definitely has floated some passes, Brock Purdy. And also this Niners team as a whole, I mean, if you just want to compare them to 2019, I don't think this Niners team is nearly as good as it was in 2019. And sure, this Chiefs team maybe is a little bit worse than 2019, but the defense is so much better. And when you have an elite quarterback and you have the better defense, it just seems like a safe bet to pick that team. It seems like a safe bet to pick the Chiefs in this game because they have the elite quarterback and they have the elite defense. It just seems like a combination that won't go well for the 49ers. And they just don't have the better quarterback in this game. And, Kyle Shanahan, I know his system is very quarterback friendly and he's able to find these guys that can run his system. Brock Purdy's been very good at running his systems and he can do some off script stuff, but most of the Niners offense is stuff that is scripted. And that's why even with the Chiefs offense in a down year, it's hard to stop them. And that's why they're back in the Super Bowl, is because Mahomes is so good at going off script. And you have that connection of Mahomes to Kelsey. And we know how much those guys love to improvise and to, manipulate coverages and stuff. That's why they're so hard to stop. And that's also why the Chiefs won the Super Bowl in 2019, is because when they ultimately had to, or Mahomes even basically called his own plays. He called WASP, essentially. Yeah. Everyone has seen the mic'd up. You've seen the video of Mahomes asking the enemy if they have time to run WASP. And then he goes, I don't care the down and distance, we're running WASP. And that led that comeback in that game to win the first Super Bowl in 50 years. I also saw another clip of Mahomes earlier today when he was getting undressed in the locker room after the AFC Championship. And he's like, we're going back to back. Got to get that back to back. And I'm just confident and Patrick Mahomes, and hearing him say that, it just gets me fired up for the Super Bowl. I don't want to give out a prediction or anything quite yet, but man, I just feel like this one is ours for the taking. I love this matchup for us. I think the Niners defense, quite honestly, is overrated. Nick Bosa, this isn't the same Nick Bosa from 2019. This isn't the same Niners pass rush from 2019. I feel like our offensive line is more talented. We haven't scored as many points this year. We're not the better scoring offense this year, but the Niners defense is also pretty static. I think their defensive backs can be exposed. Also, we know that Charvarius Ward is on the other side. We know how to play against Charvarius Ward. I watched Charvarius Ward here for years. I know he's good with the Niners, and he made himself a lot of money with them, but I remember when he was in KC, all you would ever have to do is put a double move on him, and he would bite every single time on the double move. I'm throwing a bunch of stuff out here right now, but I'm just pumped up for this Super Bowl, man. I feel like this matchup really favors us.
It absolutely favors the Chiefs. And I think this doesn't mean anything, but most of the time when the Chiefs have won in the postseason, they're not the heavy favorite, or they're not the team that anybody expects to like blow out anybody. And they play with that underdog role well. And even going into this game, they're 2-point underdogs against the 49ers, which who's betting on the 49ers to win this game? Personally, that doesn't make sense to me. I think the 49ers have a lot of names, but at the end of the day, like that difference at quarterback is the difference in this game. And I think our defense is going to surprise a lot of people. I mean, I don't want to say that they're going to completely shut down the 49ers offense, but that Ravens defense, or that Ravens offense, scared me a lot more than this 49ers one does in terms of
the Ravens,
just how lethal.
Well, the Ravens as a whole.
Yeah.
The Ravens as a whole scared me more. And like, honestly, I feel like the Ravens are the best team that we're going to see this postseason, and we already beat them. And that was on the road too. That was a true road game. I forget what I was going to say, but I mean, the Niners barely scraped by the Packers. They had to put together an amazing comeback to beat the Lions. And one constant that I noticed from both of those games too, and why I feel like this matchup favors the Chiefs. And this is why, I think I would have preferred the Lions ultimately, because it's Jared Goff. And I just feel like the Lions are maybe a year early. I definitely feel like we could have won that. Everyone would have pointed to week one coming into this game, but we didn't have Kelsey or Chris Jones. And this is just a completely different team from week one. So I would have felt really good about that. However, the Lions do have a really strong offensive line, and their running game is nothing to scoff at. But when you look at the Niners run defense, the reason I bring up the Lions run game is because the run defense has been our Achilles heel. And sure, this is Christian McCaffrey, and you're going to have a game plan to stop him. This Niners offensive line isn't as strong outside of Trent Williams, and I just feel better about us stopping that part of their game. But what I was going to point out is that the Niners gave up 182 rushing yards to Detroit. San Francisco did in the NFC Championship. And then the week before that against Green Bay in the divisional round, the Niners allowed 136 yards rushing to Green Bay. The Niners have allowed over 300 yards rushing combined over the past two playoff games. This just sounds like a game where the Chiefs could hand it off to Pacheco and he could just have a really big game, because that 2019 Super Bowl, you couldn't really run on that Niners defense as easily. And, our lead back was Damian Williams. I love Damian Williams. I love him, man. But Pacheco is a true number one, in my opinion. I don't think Damian Williams is ever a true number one. Like, he was a guy that could be a spot starter for you. I love Damian Williams. I'm not trying to slight him. I mean, that man, I love him. I love the way that he played. He was super athletic, can make guys miss. But this seems like a game where you can just hand off to Pacheco behind, whether it's Nick Allegretti or Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith, and they could have an absolute day. I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
Oh, yeah. I think the game plan definitely has to be to run the ball. One of the big reasons the Chiefs had success in that Ravens game is they had the ball for 37 and a half minutes, and the Ravens only had it for 22 and a half. And if you watch the second half, they had like a couple series that lasted maybe 2 minutes tops. So in the first half, they really controlled the ball. And as much as I think our defense can shut down that 49ers offense, you might as well have our offense on the field for 40 minutes in this game. Like why have Mahomes on the bench when you could just run the football, take 7 minutes to score, and then give it back to our defense, get them off the field, and then get the ball back? Like, that's how I think you beat this Niners team. And one thing, listen, I think Kyle Shanahan is a fantastic coach. He's one of the best offensive minds in football. But there is levels to this. And in that first Super Bowl, the inexperience of Shanahan in this game did prove to be something that, ended up costing them. Also, Jimmy G couldn't complete a throw downfield. But at the same time, like that coaching discrepancy is something to note. I think that our defensive coordinator in Spags, he's on one right now. Like, this defense is playing their best football. They might have
and he has 2 weeks to prepare.
2 weeks to prepare. In the biggest of big games, I don't think I'd want anybody else coaching this defense but Steve Spagnuolo. And also Andy Reid, he's got a chance to win his 3rd Super Bowl. He's going to be dialed in. And I just think that the coaching advantage for the Chiefs paired with everything else, it's hard to pick against this team right now.
It definitely is. And looking closer at this defense too, you have L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie. They've shut down number ones all year long. And I just don't expect that to change in this game. I think they will have a plan for Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. And really, if you look at the way that Deebo Samuel is used, it hasn't changed much since he was a rookie. He's still kind of the same player. They just use him more, and he's just gotten bigger and stronger. I believe they can stop Deebo Samuel in that running attack that they're going to try with him like they did in Super Bowl 54. And then, man, if he just lines Sneed up across from Ayuk all game, I'm confident in that matchup. I think the one that truly does worry me a little bit is, of course, George Kittle. Like, you're going to have to worry about him too. But I'm so confident in this defense no matter what. And like you said, Spags is on an absolute heater, and this defense is just playing at a level that we, quite frankly, haven't seen. And I've said it a couple times now, but this does remind me of like that last Brady Patriots Super Bowl with the Rams, or like the 2015 Denver Broncos, where, and you could kind of see this against the Baltimore Ravens too. And Nick Wright actually made this point on his, actually, I think it was on Colin Cowherd's podcast. And Nick Wright says a lot of things. I think Nick Wright's kind of a little bit of a homer, and sometimes I kind of hate some of the things he says, but he did make a really good point about how what Mahomes has started to do this year, and something that Tom Brady really mastered late in his career, is not trying to do too much, not trying to lose the game for your team. Sure, in the second half against the Ravens, they didn't score any points, but it does kind of feel like they shut down the offense a little bit, and they're just like, hey, our defense can win with this lead. Because the play calling in the second half, I definitely did not think was very good, but I also think that was kind of by design. Now, it annoys me because Andy Reid has lost playoff games in the past that he shouldn't have by shutting down the offense or taking his foot off the gas. I hate when he does that. But also, part of this is Patrick Mahomes not trying to do anything that could potentially lose the game for the team. I think if the team truly, like if the Ravens had tied it up in the end, I do think this team could have put together a game-winning drive if they felt like they needed to.
Or at least a drive to get them in field goal position.
Yeah.
And I think the offense, they'll be just good enough. That's the best way to describe it. They're not going to blow you away, but they will be just good enough to score just enough points necessary to beat this team. And if the ball's in Patrick Mahomes' hands with 2 minutes or less and the game is tied, there is no quarterback that I would rather have had that football than Patrick Mahomes. And I don't think we were even in that position. I think this game is going to be a lot like the Ravens game, where the Chiefs jump out early and make Brock Purdy come from behind. And listen, I know that he did it against the Niners. They were against the Lions. They were down by like 3 scores. Dan Campbell, for lack of a better term, kind of shit his pants defensively. They just fell apart. And I don't expect that to happen. And if it does happen, they died on the hill of this defense is going to be good enough, and it wasn't. But at the end of the day, I don't think the defense is what we have to be concerned about in this football game.
Definitely not. I have full confidence in them, and I'm excited to see what Spags has drawn up to try and slow down this Niners offense. They have a lot of weapons you got to worry about, and Spags is going to have to study each one individually to try to come up with a game plan to stop them. But that's why it's really nice that they have 2 weeks to prepare. That's such a huge deal coming into the Super Bowl. And then, of course, everyone is going to bring up that Andy Reid off the bye week stat, but there is validity to it. Andy Reid is also going to have 2 weeks to prepare a game plan for this offense, so we can see a performance from this offense that we didn't really see in the regular season or even here late in the postseason. Because, like I said, I feel like they kind of slowed down the offense on purpose against the Baltimore Ravens. They didn't want to try to do anything stupid and turn it over, especially because the Ravens defense was really good and they were really good in the regular season about getting takeaways. So I understand that from that perspective. But Michael, I think we've talked enough about kind of the Ravens game and preview the Niners enough for now. I want to talk about some of the news that we got over the past week or so. So first of all, after the AFC Championship game, we got some bad injury news.
Yeah.
Charles Omenihu ended up tearing his ACL, despite the fact that he said he would play in the Super Bowl after the game to reporters, and he seemed really confident. They did some imaging. They found out his ACL is torn. He will not be available for the Super Bowl. What's your reaction to that injury, Michael? How big of a deal do you think that is?
It's really big. Omenihu was really good. He missed the first 6 games, but I think he had 11 and a half, or was it 7.5 sacks in the final 11 games? Or I'm getting my numbers wrong or something like that.
Yeah, you got it right.
Well, he was a monster. Right. And in that game against the Ravens, that strip sack, one of the biggest 3 plays in the football game. So his absence in this game is going to suck. I mean, especially because who is it going to be now? I mean, I guess you're going to get a lot more snaps from Mike Dana. And
yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Either that or you make Felix Anudike-Uzomah active for game day and you're like, hey, man, we're going to give you like 5 snaps. Just try to get to the quarterback. I saw some people suggesting, we could sign Frank Clark. You know, he's still sitting out there and you got 2 weeks, but that just like
let him sit.
Yeah, let him sit because Frank Clark, I don't know if you guys know this. He played for the Denver Broncos and Seattle Seahawks this year. 2 teams that were desperate for pass rush and 2 teams that were desperate for some leadership on the defensive side of the ball. And they both cut Frank Clark before a full NFL season went by. He's done. He had 0 sacks with both those teams. He had 0 QB hits. He had like 2 tackles for the Broncos, and he had 3 pressures and 85 pass rushing snaps for Seattle. And everyone's going to say, he turns it on in the playoffs. But, you know, it's easy to say that when he was with the Chiefs because in the regular season, he was never getting cut. He could put it on cruise control in the regular season because he was making $25 million and the Chiefs were never going to cut him. But he was playing for a roster spot in Denver and Seattle, and he couldn't cut it at either of those places. I see no point in bringing him in because here's the thing with the Omenihu injury, where you're going to miss Omenihu the most is the pass rush department. That's what he brought, was that number 2 pass rusher next to Chris Jones and a guy that could play some interior. Omenihu was giving you like 20, 30 something snaps a game because someone pointed out, I think it might have been Only Weird Games, their podcast with Nate Taylor and Seth Kaiser and Josh Briscoe. It might have been them. I apologize if it wasn't them, but I think they were the ones that brought up that in that Ravens game, before Omenihu came out with the injury, he had only played 6 snaps in the football game. So it's not like you're having to replace 90% of the snaps for one player. This is, hey, Mike Dana is maybe going to play a little bit more. Maybe Chris Jones moves out to edge for a few more snaps in this game. I don't think
Leo Chenal, let him play edge.
Yeah. And like Willie Gay is going to be healthy too. You could even rush Willie Gay off the edge a little bit. They've done that before. I think this isn't like, of course, Omenihu's a big loss. Like I don't want to sugarcoat it. He's a really good player, and he was number 2 in pass rush win rate on this defensive line, right next to Chris Jones. But I think you can replace his snaps with somebody else. There's other guys that have been on this football team all year long that have put in the work, that have shown flashes that I think you can trust. Again, even Felix Anudike-Uzomah, even though he's been a healthy scratch for the postseason, he does have game snaps this year, and he has showed some juice off the edge. So like I said, even if it's just Joe Cullen and Steve Spagnuolo going up to him and saying, hey, you're going to play maybe like 4 or 5 snaps, but you're just going to try like hell to get to the passer, I would rather have that than Frank Clark.
Yeah, I mean, even Malik Herring, I'd rather have over Frank Clark. We've kicked the tires on Frank Clark too many times. He is done. His NFL career is over. He's not
done.
coming back. And the Chiefs, quite frankly, don't need him.
Nobody wants him.
Yeah, like we just don't. I mean, Chris Jones does, because Chris Jones just wants his buddy back.
Yeah, right.
You know? Yeah, so we're good on Frank Clark. I honestly think that the Chiefs are going to be okay. They're going to have to get more creative in how they blitz, whether it is with cornerbacks. I know McDuffie was really good this year getting to the quarterback on blitz packages. Chanel's been good. Karlaftis has been good. I mean, I'm not really worried about getting to Brock Purdy. The Niners offensive line is good with Trent Williams, and they've got some other interior guys that are good as well. But I'm not that worried that we can't force any pressure up front. And I trust the guys on the back.
Spags will bring pressure.
Yeah. And I trust the guys on the back end to hold everything down until your pass rush can get to them. Because I think an underrated feature on this defense is the fact that you have 2 all-pro corners to hold it down while your front 4 has 5 seconds to get to the quarterback.
That's the thing too, and that's what was so effective against Baltimore is they rushed with 4 a lot too in that game, and also against Buffalo. I pointed out how Joe Cullen was encouraging them not to win up the arc, even though traditionally that's what you would want to do as a pass rusher. But they were saying, no, don't do that, because we want to play contain on Josh Allen. We want to play contain on Lamar Jackson. That's what they did, and they were able to do that because their pass coverage held up. They were very consistent. They were sticky in coverage. McDuffie had a couple of passes batted down in that game against the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC Championship. I mean, Spags is going to bring pressure. They're going to find creative ways to bring pressure into blitz in this game. But there's going to be mini snaps too, because you do have to worry about Brock Purdy's legs a little bit. The Chiefs are only going to rush 4, and they might not get home, but it's going to be okay because this pass coverage is elite this year.
I also don't think you have to stress Purdy's running ability as much as you do a Josh Allen and a Lamar Jackson. Like I wouldn't have a spy on Brock Purdy. Maybe that's something that changes mid-game if he starts to torch you on the ground. But I think the 49ers have too many offensive weapons to utilize a linebacker or even a defensive end as a guy to kind of just sit and wait for him to break free. I think that'd be kind of foolish on Spags' behalf, but I don't think he's going to do that. I think it's going to be, we're going to put all of our best pieces on all of your best offensive pieces, and let's see if Brock Purdy can fit that ball in that window or find his running back. And if he can do that, great. If he can't, the Chiefs win this football game. I think that's probably the hill that they want to die on.
That's a really good way of putting it, and I agree. And you also make a good point about how, you're not going to have a QB spy necessarily in this one. I'm more so talking about like just your defensive line, if they need to, because they have before, you don't have to try to get to the quarterback as often.
Yeah.
You can play containment just because Purdy can run a little bit, but it'll be okay because you have that back end that has been so good all year. But yeah, you can now throw another linebacker to double cover George Kittle or something instead, because you're not like Brock Purdy's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Josh Allen. You're going to have to dare him to make plays in this game, just like you did with Lamar, even throwing the ball. That's another thing too, is like Ravens fans were like, oh, the Chiefs are going to be in for a rude awakening if their plan is to turn Lamar into a passer. And it's like, guys, look, no one's saying that Lamar can't throw the ball. It's a lazy and overused analysis at this point, saying Lamar can't throw, but that is the weaker part of his game. And as we saw in the AFC Championship, the Chiefs dared Lamar to beat them with his arm, and he didn't make enough plays. He threw an interception into triple coverage. That was an awful throw.
I will say, and maybe I'm a little behind on the times, I don't think Lamar Jackson can throw a deep ball in tight coverage. I still don't think he can do that. I think he can hit his wide receivers when they're wide open, like Zay Flowers was on that 50-yard bomb downfield, but like outside of that, like I'm not seeing Lamar Jackson fit a ball in a tight window with a defender draped on the receiver's back. I'm not seeing that. I haven't seen that. I mean, we saw it countless times in this game. He overfired like 3 or 4 balls. And it's like that a lot of the time. It's because he hasn't had to face a defense like the Kansas City Chiefs. But, we talked about how the Chiefs will have maybe an extra linebacker to use on like Kittle or Ayuk. My biggest fear in this game is Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey scares me more than any wide receiver or tight end that the 49ers have. Something about his ability to catch balls out of the backfield and how the Chiefs sometimes struggle to defend the flat, that terrifies me because Christian McCaffrey, man, he's the MVP of that team, and he was really good this season.
This is where the Drew Tranquill signing is instrumental for the Chiefs. It's going to be covering Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield. This is why you signed Drew Tranquill, and this is the perfect Drew Tranquill game served up on a platter. Go cover Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield because you can run with him. That has been the biggest weakness of our linebackers over the past several years. Bolton, Gay, love those dudes. They're really not great coverage backers, neither of them. That
You cut out a little bit. What'd you say? I heard that they're not great coverage linebackers.
Yeah, sorry. I cut out there at the end. My screen went black, but no, I'm just saying like Drew Tranquill versus Christian McCaffrey is the matchup for me. I mean, I think you can have Justin Reed or Mike Edwards, whoever, cover George Kittle, but I agree with you, man. I'm worried about Christian McCaffrey. He had an argument to be the MVP this year. He's their most dangerous offensive player, but I think finally the Chiefs defense has the personnel to take him out of the game.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, something that I just rewatched the mic'd up NFL film stuff from the AFC Championship game. And, Chiefs fans always, speak very highly of Tyrann Mathieu. Justin Reed has been playing unbelievable football. And that AFC Championship game was a prime example of that. But Justin Reed has been really good. And I think we don't talk about that enough because he had a sack in that Ravens game. He had a couple really big stops in the running game.
Yeah.
And just his ability to just run downhill and also cover guys downfield. It was the right choice to bring him in. And he's been so good recently.
Yeah. I've always seen people kind of be down on Justin Reed, but he was the right player to bring in. He's also on a very team-friendly contract. He's a quality safety, and he has the athleticism to turn and run with guys. He's not the greatest in coverage. I can admit that, but I mean, he can make plays downhill. He's a big hitter. He was tremendous. He did get a sack against the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC Championship game, one that ended up being huge. So props to Justin Reed, and I fully agree.
Yeah, it's just like the entire defense is playing well. And I almost wonder, we talk about how the Chiefs, specifically Brett Veach, like how could you go into a season with Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney and Marquez Valdes-Scantling as your wide receivers? And yes, that's bad, but I almost wonder if he didn't expect this type of result defensively. I think there's different guys like the Justin Reeds and the Trent McDuffies and certainly the L'Jarius Sneeds of the world on this defense that made a jump that not even our front office was expecting. And I think that's probably why they're so good this year and how they've been able to go so far in the postseason because they've had giant defensive steps from guys in the secondary. George Karlaftis has been good this year. Like outside of, I can't even think of a defensive player that's really struggled a ton. Like, I mean, they've even gotten a jump from, Drew Tranquill off the bench. And so I just think that they did struggle to evaluate talent on certain ends, but at the same time, I don't think they expected this defense to have the jump in talent and improvement that they did from last year.
Yeah, I think the weakest link is probably the defensive tackle room behind Chris Jones, but Tershawn Wharton has actually had a pretty good postseason. He's stepped it up. There isn't really any major weak links on this defense. I mean, the run defense, as I said earlier, was kind of the Achilles heel, but to me, that's always been more of an effort thing than a talent thing. I think the Chiefs have the talent to stop the run. It's just throughout the regular season, they're not putting 100% effort into run defense. Because, I mean, they held Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards in check. Both of them had like a big run in like the first or second quarter. But besides that, they really did not do anything. The Chiefs' run defense locked in. And I think they can stop the run if they put their mind to it, because that's what they've been able to do in the past. I just think it's maybe something that they don't go 100% full throttle on every single game in the regular season. And that's why the numbers don't necessarily say they're a good run defense.
I'll tell you what, also seeing Mike Pennell in 2024 on this Chiefs team brings a tear to my eye.
Yeah.
It's really awesome. Mike Pennell was so good in 2019, and it's just kind of crazy that he's on this football team right now.
I know. And then we're playing the Niners again. We got Mike Pennell back. I think, history's going to repeat itself, I think.
Listen, I hope so. I hope so. I mean, they're one game away from establishing a dynasty. Patrick Mahomes having 3 rings before turning 30, and you're going to have some serious conversations about where what the future's like in the NFL. If the Chiefs can win a Super Bowl in a year that, they're in a down year. I mean, last year was a quote unquote down year, but they still were like the number 1 seed. They went 12-4, I'm pretty sure, or was it 13-4? I mean, they didn't really lose that many games. And this year they really struggled. And if they can win a Super Bowl after all of this, when is anybody else going to get one?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to feel like the NFL let the Chiefs get one in a year that they shouldn't, if we do finish the job here. And I hope they do. But a couple more things I'm going to talk about, then we'll go ahead and wrap up. Just some more injury news. So we talked about Charles Omenihu. Joe Thuney, we got a positive update from Andy Reid about Joe Thuney. He did not practice earlier this week, but Andy Reid did say that he's making progress and he is not counted out. Michael, what are your thoughts here? Do you think Joe Thuney plays in this game? Is Andy Reid just playing a little bit of the gamesmanship thing here with Joe Thuney? Do you think he has a real chance to play?
No, I think it's like they said he had a strained pec. That pec is hanging on for dear life then, because I saw a picture of him without a shirt on, and there was really bad bruising, and he looked like he was in good spirits, but he's probably in a ton of pain. It's probably super tender. And honestly, Josh, the way that Nick Allegretti played in that AFC Championship game, I've got confidence in him. Now, obviously, it'd be nice to have Joe Thuney just in case Allegretti got hurt. But at the same time, like I would not start Joe Thuney over Allegretti if he's not 100% or at least 90%, because I think that Thuney would do more harm than good.
That's what I was going to say. Like, if we're talking about 50, 60% of Joe Thuney, I think Nick Allegretti is better than like 60% of Joe Thuney. Allegretti is a really good reserve to have off the bench. He played really well in the AFC Championship. Madubuike got through him a few times in protection, but I mean, Madubuike, the 49ers don't have a Justin Madubuike on their defensive line. Javon Hargrave is good. Eric Armstead is good. Those guys, but Madubuike has kind of been a tier above those guys this year. I really like Allegretti. We'll see about Joe Thuney, man. He's a tough dude. I've said that before. He played with a broken hand a couple years ago. This is also the Super Bowl, and he's going to have 3 weeks of rest in total if you count, the AFC Championship game week in which he didn't play. I think there's a chance, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, the swelling's definitely going to have to come down. I know Ian Rappaport said prior to the AFC Championship that some doctors thought it was torn. Some thought it was strained. They don't know necessarily. Now, there will be some YouTube doctors in the comments that are going to point out a strain is a tear, Josh, and I understand that, but there's a difference between a partial tear, which is what a strain is, and then like a full-on tear of the pec. It doesn't sound like Thuney has that. Otherwise, I don't know why Andy Reid would give that update. So there's I know I cut out there for a second.
You did, but I heard what you said. My biggest fear is, let's just say Joe Thuney plays in this game, and he lines up and he goes back, and as he's pushing and extending his and Josh is Are you
I'm
back
good.
with me?
I'm good. I'm
Okay.
here.
Okay. My
Yeah,
biggest fear is that when Joe Tooney is, in pass pro or even in the running game, as soon as he extends his hands out and activates that chest, man, if that's torn, that's gonna feel like someone is ripping it with a knife. So I don't know. We'll have to see how torn it actually is or how much of a strain it is. But with the way that Allegretti played in that AFC Championship game, with the pass rush not being as stout with the 49ers, I think why even risk it if you could have Allegretti come out and play good football? And I think out of all the things to worry about, a couple of years ago you had nobody in the Super Bowl. Having one, interior guard go down, who granted he's a great interior guard, but you have the replacements at guard, and also it's just easier to replace a guard than it is a tackle.
for sure. For sure. And I think, again, Alec Brady is a good player. He won't necessarily need help from either of the guys on the left or right of him. I think he can take matchups one-on-one, and he may get pushed back maybe a little bit more than Joe Tooney did, but I think he'll hold up just fine. And he also is very good in the run game. Alec Brady plays nasty. We talked about that last week before the AFC Championship. He does play with a little bit of a mean streak, so I like Alec Brady, and if he does have to go, I'm confident with him in there. We got one more injury update to talk about, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this up, though. So Ian Rappaport tweeted just a few hours ago, a potential addition for the Super Bowl. Chiefs running back Jerick McKinnon has been designated to return off IR. His practice window is open, and it sounds like they could get a big boost there with Jerick McKinnon coming back. That's some big news there because, honestly, McKinnon, this is the kind of game you also would like to have him in. First of all, he's a former 49er. I'm sure he wants to play in this game and go up against his former team. And you cannot overstate Jerick McKinnon's value as a pass protector. He is their best pass protecting running back. You're going to need that extra pass protection. And even if McKinnon is a little bit rusty, he does provide that receiving threat out of the backfield too. He was Mahomes' favorite target down the stretch last year. Remember last year in the last few months of the season, he had like 9 touchdowns. Like,
It's crazy.
Jerick McKinnon is a very good number 2 running back. And I know Clyde has made the most of his touches, but pass protection, you'd rather have McKinnon, and in the receiving game, you'd rather have McKinnon. So if the Chiefs can get him back healthy, this is a huge boost.
I almost wonder though how effective he's going to be. What was the injury that he sustained that put him on IR?
I think it was a core muscle injury, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's what Mecole Hardman had last year. He played in the AFC Championship game and then got knocked out. So how effective will Jerick McKinnon be if he does play? I think, like what you said, he is the best blocking back on this team. He is a fierce blocker, and I would like to have that. But at the same time, if he's not at 50 or 60%, then I would rather even have Pacheco or Clyde out there. Listen, we've been Clyde critics, Josh. We've been up there with the people saying that we should get rid of him. Clyde, to his credit, has been one of the better offensive pieces on this team this year, which is absolutely crazy. I think it also says more about what the Chiefs' offense is than what Clyde is, but he's playing good football right now, and I don't want to take that away from him if he's more healthy than a Jerick McKinnon is.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think if McKinnon can give you anything, though, even if it just is for a few snaps, you'll take that because this is the Super Bowl and this is the biggest game of the year.
And that is true. And we saw what Jerick McKinnon could do last year in the Super Bowl, and he was really good.
Yes, he was. He helped out that pass protection big time. Also, even like Mecole Hardman last year. Now, Mecole Hardman has been terrible this year. There's no sugarcoating that. But last year, the core muscle injury got him knocked out of the AFC Championship game, but he did catch a first down in that game that ultimately helped us win. So even if McKinnon, is in there for one play and then he gets hurt again, if it's a positive play, you will take that.
It's very true. It's very true. And hey, McKinnon is a better player than Mecole Hardman was as well. So I think that the impact that he would have on the offense would be greater.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Well, I said that was going to be the last thing, but I'm going to ask you one more question because I'm just curious what your thoughts are here. Does Kadarius Toney play in the Super Bowl, do we think?
Absolutely not. If he plays in the Super Bowl after what he said on social media, also, actually, no, if he plays in the Super Bowl after what he did all season long, it's like, okay, can I play in the Super Bowl then? Like, I could be just about as beneficial to the squad as Kadarius Toney. I also don't know how he could go from trashing Andy Reid, saying that he's not hurt, and basically like ratting on himself, to playing in this big game, especially because he's just hurt this team every step of the way this year. And I understand that he was really good in the Super Bowl last year. Maybe lightning struck, and I don't know if lightning will strike twice. And so I wouldn't play him, and I don't think that he does play. If he played, I'd be shocked. I would literally be very surprised.
Yeah. It just kind of feels like after the stunt he pulled on social media that he's not. I think that what they're probably doing is using him to simulate Deebo Samuel in practice and preparation for the Super Bowl, but that's about as close as he'll get to being on the field for it, because I just think you don't want to ruin the rhythm that you have with the guys that are currently out there and have proven to be formidable this postseason. Kadarius Toney was one of those guys that was causing problems in the regular season. I don't think you want to mess with that. You don't want to mess things up and have something happen. I loved Kadarius Toney, defended him for a long time, but I think we're past that, and it sucks because he is very talented, but some guys just don't have it in between the years. So it sucks, but I just, and Andy, he said that he didn't see the video on social media. I think that's BS. I think we all know that Andy saw it, and I think that pissed him off.
If it's not broke, don't fix it. Like right now, the Chiefs offense is better than it has been all season long. And so why add somebody back to the mix that hurt this team a lot more than they helped it? And Kadarius Toney, say what you will about a Marquez Valdes-Scantling or Sky Moore. Kadarius Toney was a direct result in losing like 2 football games. And so I don't think you can have that guy on the field. I think that at a certain point, you need to be rewarded for your merits in games. And if he hasn't shown all season long that he's worthy of playing in the game, then why would you play him in the game? Because he was good last year? I don't think that's the right way of thinking. And I don't think that's how Andy Reid goes about doing things.
Yeah, last year was last year. Last year, Frank Clark was on this team. So, things change, after a year goes by. So I think that pretty much answers that. But we'll go ahead and wrap it up there, Michael. It was great talking to you tonight. This is a really good episode. I'm glad we were able to do something on this game and something before the big Super Bowl week. And I know you're going to be busy down there on Radio Row. So with all that being said, why don't you go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube at KC Sports Report. I just posted a couple days ago an AFC Championship game recap where I kind of gave my thoughts for a little bit. I'm still going through some legal issues, so there hasn't been a ton of content on the channel just because I don't know what I can and cannot post. But I will say, go follow me on the Bleacher Report mobile app. The ad is Michael_D'Arcy. I'm trying to build up more of a platform on Bleacher Report. Also, the social media platforms at the Michael D'Arcy on Twitter and Instagram. And that's about it.
Sounds good. And that will be all down below in the description as always. And as always, for everyone else, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. You can also listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. You can check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. We'll see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs.